Now, if anyone has ever told you that in the Gambia in 2025, that young people of that country, youths to be very specific, would go into the streets to launch their frustration and dissatisfaction with the state of affairs of internet productivity in the Gambia, together with the public utilities regulatory authorities charge that they put out for GSM operators to have a specific pricing for GSM service in respect to connectivity for Gambians, and that people have to go out to speak up and express and manifest their dissatisfaction against this PURA charge, and people are going to be arrested for that. In today's day and age, in the Gambia, one would perhaps not believe it, but this is exactly what is happening in the Gambia today. A group of young people went out. They did not seek for a permit with the Office of the Inspector General of the Police, as law required them to do by virtue of Section 5 of the Public Order Act, which, by the way, is a very draconian law that we've had since 1961 and has underwent several amendments over the years. But also, it has gone all the way in 2017 to the Supreme Court of the Gambia, who upheld and affirmed that particular section of the Public Order Act is in compliance or in tandem with the 1997 Republican Constitution of the Gambia, because there have been several arguments of the illegitimacy of such law, that it contravenes the right to freedom of assembly and to manifest such freedom publicly without having to be restricted by the Inspector General of Police. Now, this is not new. There's a lot of other countries that levy such restriction against the right to freedom of assembly in several countries, including, for example, in Russia, Saudi Arabia. But in lots of other liberalized democracies, for example, there is just a level of notification that you need to do to let a particular government or state know that you plan to go on a demonstration, whatever the cause is. And the state is duty bound to provide some level of protection and security to ensure that you are able to conduct your procession as peacefully as possible. Now, in the Gambia, for most instances, right, the context is that the Inspector General of Police is being hired by the President of the Gambia. And in a sense, he's at the mercy of the President to fire him if, for example, he takes some unilateral or discretionary decisions that the state or the government or the President, in fact, do not like. And so most of the time, you realize that in our political history, whenever people want to go out and they request for a permit through the Office of the Inspector General of Police, it has never been granted for obvious reasons, because the argument of national security is what has always been peddled to deny people the right to go out and demonstrate. And even if, for example, the young people who are engaged in this, as we know, because Gambia is just a tiny country, everybody knows everybody, understands everybody. And if there are people who are hell bent on orchestrating chaos and confusion and problems in the country, we know those people. Not that they are not capable of it, but we know for a fact the individuals who are involved in this procession or demonstration are not people who are determined to put or plunge the country into chaos. I think what the government of the Gambia is doing, and which, by extension, the judiciary of the Gambia, sadly, while they are in fact upholding the law, they're literally bent on setting an example to the general public of the Gambia, to their people, from any attempt to go out to demonstrate against any policy or program or regulation of this government of the Gambia to the Gambian people, which is pretty unfortunate, because if you remember, just it was in 2016 that we have this government that came into power, 2017, when we uprooted the dictator, former President Yahya Jammeh, who for 22 years has materially relied on this specific justification to deny people access to manifest and exercise their rights to freedom of assembly in the Gambia. He constantly arrested, brutalized, terrorized, and jailed people based on this particular law that we have in the Public Order Act of the Gambia. Now, you'll think that after that transition, 2017, all the way to where we are, from the various House of Representatives that we have, there would be at least an effort to ensure that law, which in my opinion contravenes our fundamental right to freedom of assembly, that it will in fact be changed, it will be amended. But they did not do that. None of these individuals cared enough to do that. They had other preoccupations politically that occupied their time and energy and refused to do that. Today, young people in the Gambia who genuinely, in my belief, just went out to ensure that their voices are being heard. They literally just went out to ensure that they express their frustration with the internet connectivity issue in the Gambia, which is also crazy if you think about it, because this year, 2025, basic services like internet in the Gambia is still a problem. People cannot access basic services needed for their survival, for them to communicate with their family or just to do basic research or whatever it is that they want to do. That is still a problem in the Gambia. Water is a problem in the Gambia. Electricity is a problem in the Gambia. Now, the government continues to spend money on other areas, and while they make life so unbelievably hard for Gambians, and if Gambians want to go out for basic processions as this to express how they're feeling on a variety of issues, people are duty bound to go and request for a permit with the Inspector General of Police, and refusal to do that, then you have been picked up and you're being brutalized and you're being sent to court, after which more than likely you are going to be kept under detention because these young people have been denied bail. Can you imagine? They have been denied bail in the Gambia today for simply going out to exercise their constitutional right to have their voices heard against various systems and forms of oppression that this government is subjecting Gambians to. It is no understatement to say that this is a very worrying trend in the Gambia, and Gambians must not see these young people who are out being arrested and being sent to jail as an isolated incident. There is a systematic pattern that we continue to see from this government. And today, these young people may, in fact, be guilty of state capriciousness or victims of state capriciousness. But I can assure you 100% that they will not be the only one, that they have been used as an example, and more people are going to fall victims of this state arbitrariness for them to go and continue with their daily lives and spend their time with their families and continue their work that they do. They are no harm to the society. These young people are no threat to the Gambian society. If there is any threat to the lives and livelihoods and meaningfulness of Gambians, it's no one but the state. The state is the enemy of the people. The African states have always, in many instances, been the sole and primary enemy of the people. They do not work for the people, they work for themselves. And if you dare to stand up to speak the truth to power, then they come after you. And the condition for truth, as Abraham Joshua Hessel will always say, is to allow suffering to speak. These young people are out to speak to the power that be, to make them understand that, in fact, they work for the voters or the electorates of the Gambia. We cannot continue to live like this. We cannot continue to be silent while the state continues to abuse and terrorize and vilify and use the powers that it has to literally silence people who have no intention to plunge the country into trouble. Now, the way forward is this. I do think that there's going to be an emergence of some religious people from our community who are going to go to the president and ask him to forgive these young people, as we've seen before. But there is not going to be any serious discussion for the state to provide security in circumstances like this to ensure that young people are able to speak up their minds and to ensure that if there is any threat of violence that is being called, because it has institutions to do that, instead of being in situations like this. Because, mind you, every revolution starts like this. And unless you don't want to acknowledge that there is an emerging social revolution that we are seeing in Gambia, that's not even an understatement. The more people continue to be frustrated, the more people continue to suffer, the more unemployment keeps rising, the more the cost of living continues to escalate. People are going to get more and more into situations like this.